FV Major was a fighting game event where players both local and international gathered to compete for glory. 6 games were available during the event, with the majority of them being official tournaments for the respective games shown on screen here, leading up to their championships. It was pretty cool to see lots of international players coming to the event, especially the ones from the Tekken scene, from Rang Chu to AK, Dawood, and even Atif. The sheer amount of dedication these players go to in order to become the best was outstanding. Commentators for the respective games that happened on stream were top notch, and watching them live on the spot, being able to provide enjoyment to viewers both on stage and at home is a skill that not a lot of people have. There were tons of giveaways happening throughout the event, and that has definitely brought up the hype even more, especially the big prizes such as a PlayStation 5, a Steam Deck, and more. As for me, I decided to join the Street Fighter 6 tournament in order to get more experience in the tourney settings, as I am too used to the online mindset. How did that go? I got destroyed, of course, not even making it past pools, but that only made me realize not only I need to play better, but to study and understand the game's mechanics and have a better mindset during offline plays. After finishing the tourney and spending time spectating, meeting up with new friends, observing and taking note of things, I could not help but to notice significant issues with how the event turned out to be. Let's start with the on-site registration itself. While it didn't take me too long to get registered since I came quite early, there were around 2 registration booths, one for local and one for international players. Only later on they realized that it would take too long and only proceeded to have additional helpers to speed things up. That also didn't help with how the pools needed to start at 11 AM. Therefore, they had to inform players who were in Pool 1 to come up and register. Based on the number of entries on start.gg, there were estimated to be 408 attendees, excluding ghost entries and whatnot. I personally think this should have been anticipated by the organizers before the event even started. You cannot have that number of players and only a small crew to handle the registration. That's just asking for trouble. Regardless, they eventually made it through. Next is the setup for the tourney. As mentioned before, I went for the Street Fighter 6 tourney. I was in Pool 3 and it was supposed to start around 1 PM. Instead, I ended up playing sometime about an hour plus later. There were only 3 stations working and a ton of people crowding around the area. Not only that, when I played, I could barely hear a thing, so that's nice. Meanwhile, on the Tekken side, there were few unused stations as well for some reason. Apparently they were meant for losers bracket, though I think it could have been handled better as well. Not only that, these marshals weren't even equipped with some sort of megaphone or a portable speaker so that they can call out player names without screaming their lungs out. The Tekken section and the anime fighters eventually had a big speaker microphone combo to help out, but as far as I can remember, the Street Fighter section never got it. Again, this should have been anticipated because the organizers had an idea on how many players that would be attending. The marshals had to somehow make this work, and bless their soul for making it work. What I noticed were also frequent no-call no-shows that honestly should have been put into losers bracket immediately so things start moving. The leniency on it was a little bit too long. I have no experience as a marshal, but that is what I observed. My friend who joined Tekken 8 was supposed to start around 2 PM but ended up playing at 4 PM. I cannot imagine those whose pools were much later. Or so I thought. I had the pleasure of making friends with 2 Tekken players. One of them was in Pool 8 and they ended up having to play the game at around 10:45 PM give or take, only to finish by 11 PM plus. It was already late by then, everyone was exhausted, and those who stayed probably just wanted things to be over so that they could make it to top 32, which leads to the change of the schedule itself. Due to the sheer amount of delays during the tournament itself, the schedule had to be changed significantly to the point where Tekken was the only main stage games, while the anime fighters got put to the side stream. Some of them did end up being put on the main stage once Tekken was over, while Street Fighter 6 got no streams at all. Here's the before and after image of the scheduling. Yikes. Whoever decided that Dragon Ball Fighters needed to be held near the end of the event was the single biggest mistake I have ever seen. While the Tekken stream was over, Dragon Ball Fighters were still ongoing till post 7 PM due to a reset. This should have been earlier since other games would have been significantly shorter overall. Dragon Ball Fighters on the other hand takes up to 5 minutes per match. As if all of these issues weren't enough, there were also lack of seats or proper rest areas for the players. Most of them ended up either sitting in the main stage area or somewhere else. You might be thinking, they don't need special attention, but I believe that a proper rest area for contestants, local or international, would have done wonders for them, especially since most pools were delayed so much. There were also the impossible task of figuring out who's actually playing versus the bystanders. The play area was constantly cramped by both players and bystanders who shouldn't be there in the first place. I saw how many people who weren't even playing just stood so close to the play areas where it was already cramped, adding on to the confusion as well. For an event that had such a big sponsor, including government agencies, this feels like a gigantic blunder for a first-time goer like myself. I pitied those who worked their butt off from day till night to get things done, possibly losing their voices in the process, and also downright exhausted. These people deserve way better. You're telling me that you can't even spend somewhere around 30 ringgit plus for a set of these portable speaker plus microphone that your team can use for future events, while the lucky draw prizes are up there in the 42k USD? That is absolutely unacceptable. This made it sound like there was a priority shift on how the money was being allocated throughout the planning phase. Instead of allocating more towards having better gears, more manpower, or even a better venue, it ended up going to the lucky draw and possibly other stuff instead. I truly do not understand how this has happened. Was it to attract the players? Was it to get the hype going for next year? Or is it just simply to show off to the crowds that didn't know any better? For me, this is such a horrible way of introducing people to the fighting game scene. Look, I am criticizing this event harshly not because I hate it. It's because it had the potential to show people that fighting games are exhilarating, competitive, and most importantly, very freaking cool. The fact that international players even come here in the first place is a sign of recognition that Malaysia is a pretty cool place to stop by for a tournament. Instead, the blunders that have happened throughout the event may have left them with a sour taste, and we might not even get more official tournaments in the future or even as many international participants. Think about it. That's a lose-lose situation. I want Malaysia to be the next stop for official fighting game tournaments someday. I want to see it grow, just like how other esports titles are growing in their own unique way. If Mobile Legends, Valorant, or even Wild Rift can have their own tourneys that people watch in awe and have full recognition, so can the fighting game scene here as well. But it also means waking up and taking full responsibility for the blunders that have happened. The organizer needs to understand that when a major event like this happens, this affects everyone. Not just the spectators, not just the local or international players, but the world itself. People will see the blunders and think to themselves, yeah, maybe we should avoid this country if they have another one next year. I heard bad things about it. Do you really want that to happen? For the crew that fought tooth and nail to keep things afloat despite the absolute chaos and lack of manpower during the 2 days of FV Major, you guys rock, and you deserve so much better treatment. If nothing changes by the coming months or years, then I highly doubt Malaysia will become the next stop for fighting games until someone who truly understands the scene comes in and takes over. I can only pray that I get to see it happen someday.